Hey guys, this is another very unstructured video about the PhD. At some point, I really would like to have more formal, thought out stuff, but that's not where I'm at right now. Too busy. Today, I think what I was wanting to just kind of talk through is loneliness and loneliness in a PhD or in grad school generally. I'll say that as well. And I think that there's a few different reasons why. I know my experience has been somewhat lonely, and it may be different for other people, but I know this has been my experience. And I think at least part of it is because I'm starting during COVID, so I don't actually know anybody like in person. It's just different to like make friends on Zoom. Um, so if any of y'all are going through that, I totally understand. Or if you do an online program, like an online master's or something, like it's just going to be different, right? Yeah, so I think that's like a huge thing. But I know I'm going to mostly speak about the PhD. I know it was a little different for my master's program. But your time is just so precious and it fills up with school like so quickly. Like there's obviously your classes, but then also your own individual research, and then you might have a GRA or a TA, and I have both. And so those things fill up your time, and it just leaves less time to spend with people, right? Less time to stay in contact. And again, I'm kind of in a weird situation where started a program during a pandemic, so I can't see anybody anyway. But it just makes it a little bit trickier to like feel connected to other people when most of the time you're reading books. So I think that's a huge piece of it. The other piece is just that like most people can't relate to the experience of getting a PhD. They might have been to grad school or not. Like most people in my circle didn't go to grad school. They didn't get a master's. I guess my circle has changed since I went and got a master's, and then so now I'm friends with people who have masters. But you know what I mean. And so just how that experience is different from undergrad is maybe unfamiliar to some people. And then I know a lot of folks are first gen students, and so if your parents didn't go to college at all, or if your family members didn't go to college at all, and then now you're doing sort of like this extra schooling on top of college, kind of understanding how it's structured and the purpose and why it's so long. Like, I think that's complicated for other people. And mostly, I think it's just like the experience, right? Like, they don't know what it's like to go through that. And so that can be kind of a lonely thing. So I'm feeling that just where I'm feel like I'm struggling to make decisions and I want to talk it through with people, but like they don't really know about setting a research agenda or developing your prospectus. And that's just how it is, right? If you go into a PhD program, there's just not that many people who have done that thing before. And so that's tricky, that's hard. And I find it kind of isolating. So I guess just if you're experiencing that, if you also feel that way, I just want you to know you're not alone in that. And then I think especially if you're a parent doing a PhD, I think things vary by field, right? In terms of like what age people tend to go back at. And I'm in education, so people are a little bit older, but I'm still the only parent in my cohort. And so that's been tricky. I don't know, because I'm juggling different responsibilities. I know somebody in my cohort told me the other day, they're like, oh, I'm staying up till 1:30 and studying and blah blah blah. And like I did that when I was in a master's program, and I would do that with friends, and we would cook together, we would study together, we would be drinking coffee at midnight. But then like I just can't do that anymore. I can't stay up that late. I have to go to bed because I have to be up with my kid in the morning. I need to be getting her ready for school. So I think aside from just the PhD itself, sometimes there's other life experiences that also feel isolating. And then when you kind of combine them together, I don't know, it feels like a lonely experience at times. Not always. I do feel like I'm like making good connections with friends and with advisors and professors and things like that. But I think for me, it's especially when it comes around decisions. I have a hard time not being able to talk to people who understand kind of like what I'm dealing with. At the same time, though, I do want to encourage you, like, don't not talk to people. I talk to my sister about stuff a lot, and she doesn't have a clue what I'm talking about, but she's a really good listener. So don't feel like you can't talk to people. Find someone who's a good listener, find someone who cares about you and who's willing to listen to you talk about research stuff. And then I think the other thing that has made my experience thus far, and I'm only a few months in, right? What's making that experience a little bit lonely is just ideas and thoughts. And again, I don't know how this varies by field, because I've never done a PhD in like physics or entomology or whatever, right? But when you're moving into this degree of expertise, you're really focusing in on some big ideas and theories and concepts that other people just aren't thinking about in their daily life. And I need to learn how to turn my brain off a little bit, but most of the time I'm thinking about stuff. I'm thinking about, especially this semester, because I'm taking a course on it, like I'm thinking about my epistemology and where do I situate myself as a scholar, and how does that inform my methods and methodology? And most people aren't thinking about that, right? So like some of that, can just be lonely. And I don't know. I know like this week I've been reading this book. It's Decolonizing Methodologies by Linda Y. Smith, I think. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. She's a professor of education and a member of the Maori people. And it's just been so fascinating, like so interesting to learn, about the indigenous epistemology and thinking about how our modern conceptions of research have really done damage to indigenous people groups. And this is something I think that predates my time in a PhD, but I think studying things like epistemology have really challenged me to think critically about my worldview. And I'm busy taking those things apart and trying to put something back together. And then I just think, the community that I was raised with is still using the same worldview that I don't know if I ever fully accepted it, to be honest. But, they're still using a very modernist, objectivist worldview where everything is simple. It's point A to point B, cause and effect. History is linear. Truth is objective and it's right there. We just have to find it. And I've been in a different sphere than that. But then I think I'm moving even more differently from that. And that's difficult. And I don't think I have good words for this, and maybe I'll follow up at some point, but to have like learning these different ways of thinking, it doesn't just affect like how you do your research. It affects how you view the world. It affects how you think about the things that matter to you. It affects how you think about yourself in the world. And I feel like that's happening a lot, and it can feel lonely to be there on your own, right? And to have other people staying where they are while you're on this difficult and complicated journey. So anyway, I just wanted to address that. But if you're struggling with loneliness, one thing I do want to say is a few years back, I was struggling really badly with depression. And I talked to my sister about it, or both sisters about it. And I remember one of the things she said is that Loneliness is the human condition, but emptiness is not. She's a therapist, so she has all kinds of smart things to say. But I think to some extent, like we do experience the world just from where we are, right? And nobody shares that exact same experience. And so loneliness isn't bad, but emptiness is. And I was dealing with a lot of emptiness. And so if you're feeling emptiness and you're feeling hopeless and you're feeling like so disconnected so that like you don't see the path forward, really, really encourage you to reach out to somebody. Can be a friend, but I've found huge benefits from like talking with a therapist who I see weekly. Highly recommended. Anyway, I'm also on medication, and that is a plus. It really helps a lot. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, like, I think loneliness is probably a normal part of getting a PhD and kind of like pursuing this really in-depth study. But I also want to mention that, like, you don't have to feel that way. I hope that we can build a community where you can talk honestly about things. Here, I hope you find that in your cohort, and then have that with your people outside your PhD, because the people outside your PhD are really important and they matter, right? But again, like if you're struggling with emptiness, I hope you're able to get help. Okay, maybe I'll put a link in a resource down here. I don't know how to YouTube. I'll figure this out.